nothing in there about my trunk and your lovely little portmanteau.
You're holding the 62 edition of the SCCA.
You can stick this bloody sticker where the sun...
Hey,
don't
Bill.
shine.
Hey, Bill, what seems to be the problem, Bill?
Well, the problem is that Bill here is an
trunk is not
arsehole.
the spec.
No, he doesn't mean that.
No, yes, he does.
No,
yes,
he
he
really
does.
doesn't
Yes,
mean
no,
that.
he
He's just
really
fooling
does
with you,
think
Bill.
that
He's just
Bill
fooling with you.
is an
Bill,
arsehole.
let me
I'm just doing my job here.
Bill, in my experience, there is, listen to me, something like this, there's always a middle ground. All right, now Ken's out of line.
And I'm just
all right?
doing my job.
I understand you are. You know how he gets on a race day, and you know that. All right, but you're not going to DQ us over a trunk.
Happy, Bill?
Yeah, I'll handle it.
Tell me, James, you once described you said that making a car is like making a movie, and I wonder what you meant by that.
Well, I think one way not all of us are motorsports fans. Certainly I was not. When I first was attracted to this script, it was the characters and the world. And I think what you're alluding to is that the predicaments and the frustrations of these characters I recognized in our own world as the fight to get something new or different made in a system built to make what was made last year, and the similarity in the sense that the costs are high and the risks are high. And although people like me don't tend to die making movies, we can't disappear magically if we fail. And there's a lot of ways I connected to what they were doing, and to the unique group of characters, that a lot of the great friendships of my life and the great connections are with people like these who I made the movie with, but also even people who I 10 years ago made a film with or longer, and you run into them and it's like you haven't seen each other for 5 minutes, because there's something about working together physically on doing something that connects you for a lifetime with people, and that's another way I really connected with what these guys are doing.
Jeno, I mean, I love to labor a metaphor. So, I mean, to me, this movie is the Ford GT of cinema, really, at the moment, in the sense that it's beautifully classically styled, but equally, under the hood is this incredible technology that you just think you couldn't have made this movie 10 years ago. And I wonder what the complication was of mounting a film like this.
A lot of people tried many, many times prior to Jim's succeeding. I think part of the reason, I mean, who knows why these things really happen when they happen. Part of it was the clarity of Jim's vision, but part of it was also, we were very conscious of mounting a huge, very expensive movie that was essentially a character drama with some action, which is, impossible in this marketplace. Nobody is doing that anymore. So the metaphor of the Ford Motor Company and the car and Fox and us was very specific feeling, in the sense that they were giving us a shot to do this, and yet, it's the typical tension when you're spending a shitload of somebody's money. The movie is so beautiful and so immersive, and it works on so many different levels, that, it's one of those things that its time was here.
Well, it's also a period piece, which is an extraordinarily complicated thing to mount as well. Francois, I wonder if I can ask you what it was like kind of recreating these cars, this time period. I mean, how much work went into making sure that the details there were correct?
It was an enormous amount of work, and more than I thought knew when I was getting into this. I mean, everything that you saw had to be built, basically. Nothing existed from when we started. We built that entire set. In fact, the entire Le Mans race was divided into 4 locations in 2 different states. A big second unit in Georgia and a huge first unit here in Agua Dulce, and an entire set was built from scratch. And the cars were education. I was not a car guy going into this, just like Jim. So we all had to become experts in each of these cars, and each of the cars are a character unto themselves, and they have tons of little details and minutia that had to be lovingly recreated. But it was really fun to dive in and really learn about this world and recreate it, something that doesn't exist anymore.
I could feel the race, and so much of that came down to the way it sounded. I mean, I wonder, Donald, how you capture that how you capture that so impeccably in the film, because it really is a complicated thing to get right.
Well, yeah, because it's a real car. I mean, what you're hearing there, that picture car is, I'm not sure what's the engine, but we knew that it wasn't the real engine. So my job was to go out and find that car. And I can tell you there's about 10 GT40s remaining in the planet, and they're not going to let us record them and put them in a movie. It's not to mention take them up to 220 miles an hour. So we had to find a car that was agreeable, and we did find a man in Ohio who had built his own GT40 out of legitimate Ford parts, and Ford came out and certified it and gave it a serial number, and he was gracious enough to let us actually record that car. So that's the GT40 you're hearing, and it's a real GT40. So that was part of my goal, is to...
The same is true of the Aston Martins, the Ferraris. You were accurate for all of them.
Yes. But that was the hardest because, when we found the cars, people wouldn't talk to us because they went, "Oh, you're making a movie? And you're not going to destroy my car for your movie." And I said, "No, we'll be very gentle." And we were. And we did the Ferrari as well. And so the cars you're hearing there, I knew the car police would be out there and they'd want to know what we did, and we did the right thing. We got the real cars.
Well, and Mike, tell me about finding, obviously we can talk about the complication of staging Le Mans, of getting the editing on that right, but I'm curious to know, how, when you're working with two such seasoned actors, how complicated it can be to
Makes my life really easy.
It does?
Yeah, no, actually the hardest part of that is that, you're presented with two such great performances. It's like you want to have them both on screen all the time. So you have to kind of balance who you're actually weighing scene to scene. It's a challenge. It's, in some ways you feel like, you have a lot of responsibility. You don't want to screw it up because it's like, okay, both these guys are great and they're doing things. Matt's performance is incredibly subtle. It's one of the subtlest things I've seen in a long time, particularly, in the work that he's done. So, and I've worked with Christian before. We did 310 to Yuma, and this is the polar opposite type of performance. So, that was the trick. It was just to make sure that you really felt the friendship between these two guys, as Jim said. And we have kind of a background story about this also. All of us up here have done a lot of movies together. So I think that comes out together. We really, I just think inherently it's just in the DNA of making the movie. We know each other very well. Don, myself, Francois, Jim, Jenno. So
I don't know any of them.
Yeah, we're lucky. It's a loose atmosphere, and I think it comes through. It's genuine.